So I am currently in the process of editing my next interview with the legendary Josh Norbido. He's a magician, great, lovely, and we were having a chat about how the industry has changed, right? Back in the day, you had magicians that did big performances on stages, and it was really all about the performer. You know, they wear the top hats, the fancy coats, it's all about them. And then you had David Blaine come along, and he was like, what if we completely flip that? I just go on the street, no personality, no expression, just do a trick, and you focus on the reactions. The reactions are what are important. And now we are in an era where YouTube came along, and you had the PewDiePies of the world and things where Let's Play started becoming a thing, where you weren't playing the video game yourself, you were watching someone else play that video game, in which, you know, every kid got into, and parents were like, I don't understand, I don't get this. And then it started evolving. You had things like Twitch streamers, we just watched them for hours and hours. Maybe they're playing games, maybe they're reacting to the news, maybe they're reacting to something else that's going on. And now we have things like Gogglebox and dedicated React channels. What's the deal with this? Why are we so obsessed with how other people react or their opinions or thoughts on a particular subject? Why do we feel like we need to share those moments with those other people rather than just enjoying them ourselves in the comfort of our own home? I'm not sure I have a perfect answer for this myself, but I thought I'd at least run through a few thoughts that I had or notes that I picked up from that interview I'm currently editing, so be prepared, it's going to come out on the channel. And then I would absolutely love to hear what your thoughts are on the matter, because it's an ever-evolving subject where we started with the PewDiePie Let's Plays is very different now to... Actually, is it very different, or is it very similar, just taking slightly different forms? I wonder whether it is a bit of a throwback to the sort of campfire days, that need for community, because yes, we can laugh chilling on the bed watching a nice comedy special, which is great, and I do all the time. But there's a reason we also go out to live comedy shows, or we go to live concerts. Once again, we could very easily do it for free on our bed, but we decide to make the effort to venture out to a location, pay an absurd amount of money for this common experience. And just saying, oh great, you get to hear it, like what is that tangible value that exists there? And I'd argue part of it, not entirely, because there's a huge amount of backlog of research that, oh, you could do 10 PhDs worth into this subject, but I'd argue part of it is that common experience that we want to share a moment with other people. It's like, I've done plenty of solo travel in my life, I've gone to plenty of solo concerts, but it's different when you can share that moment with someone else, because there's an element of comfortability that comes with being there with someone else that you know. There's an element of being able to refer back to those past experiences that you had, memories that you had with other people, that you don't get when you just do it by yourself. Like when I'm thinking back, remembering past things that I've done, I'm never going to think, oh, remember that time I was chilling by myself watching that thing? Like, no. Maybe if it's a really, really impactful movie, but you've got to remember that one time. Remember when we're at the cinema and that new Marvel film came out and everyone was cheering? Like, that's what you're going to remember. Remember we went to that concert and danced our hearts out in the mosh pit where we were nearly dying from dehydration because it was so hot, so then we had to sneak out before we passed out like the 7 other people around us. Like, they're the moments that you're going to remember, not the chilling at home by yourself. And once again, I do wonder, is it that callback to that community that we as humanity have relied on for so many generations? Is it the same reason that when we watch sitcoms, there's laugh tracks behind telling us this is the moment everyone else is laughing and when we should too? Is it the same reason that during live shows, talent shows, Got Talents, music competitions, that they cut to the audience reactions? They cut to maybe they're saying some statement, maybe they're clapping, maybe they're booing, whatever it may be. It's that permission or that expectation that these people are reacting in a certain way, so you should probably do the same. It's the same reason, I guess, music tracks are behind the lines of dialogue in movies, because once again, it is guiding you as the viewer into a certain emotional state or into a certain action, whether that be laughter, tears. And sure, you can say you have free will to choose over those moments, but there is always something pulling us. When people are laughing around you, it's very hard not to be laughing as well. And when other people are crying around you, it's very hard not to cry yourself. So once again, there is a central pull there of community that we are all being brought to, that while originally perceived as just cheap entertainment, or just watching someone play video games, is probably actually much more foundational than that. And there's a reason why it has had such a hold on and has made its way into traditional television through shows like Gogglebox, which is just the reacts and Let's Plays of the early 2010s. Another example is when you hear a funny joke, or when something really entertaining or sad has happened to you. Are you not desperate to go and tell someone about it, to share that experience with them, either to gather support or to just entertain? There is something there with sharing the moments that we have with other people that drives us to our core and that we desperately want to emanate around our community. We also see ourselves through how we think other people see us. So if we can share these stories and make someone else laugh, we think we're funny because we think they think we are funny. And that doesn't probably play into the whole thing, but that might also be an additional element there, that we are trying to create a personality, that we are someone who goes to the concerts, we are someone who can make people laugh, that we have a good taste in that music, we have a good taste in that comedy. So by sharing these moments with other people, it's not necessarily the reason for going to the physical events, because there's more pull there from your personal experience of just enjoyment. But if it's sharing a TikTok or a reel with a friend, that very much comes into play, that you're showing, I have good taste, I can choose a joke that makes you laugh, or something that makes you think or feel. And I wonder how much of this will be dissolved as media becomes more and more diversified, and everyone's viewing experience becomes more and more fragmented. In an era where there was less choice, which arguably is also a bad thing, because it's nice that we have so many choices of movies and TV and entertainment and education, but in an era where there was less, everything that came out was a viewing experience. When you had the final episode of like a big TV show, you had to be there at that exact time on that exact day to watch it, or you missed it and everyone else would be talking about it and you have no idea what's going on. But now you are watching entertainment that is completely different to your friends. And I remember hearing an interview with a YouTube staff member talking about how a huge number of YouTube's audience say that they watch stuff relating to a topic they don't think their friends will like. And that allows one to find topics that are very particular to their interest. But it also starts fragmenting these communities, because we lose that common experience that we once had. And I wonder, are there potential negative consequences to that? That if we are only ever relating to people outside of our physical network, we no longer have those local spaces. Because I remember living at home back in Sydney, and I may know a couple of the neighbours by name or face, and a couple that you occasionally chat to if you run into each other. But we weren't friends with anyone in the neighbourhood. Not even close. And part of it's a good thing, because you don't want to become too friendly with someone, then something happens and now you're enemies and you're forced to live next to each other. But there was no sense of local community. The only time you got a sense of local community is maybe there was some really big cultural arts thing that was happening, or it was like election day when you actually saw people out on the street. But beyond that, there wasn't that sense of small town, because we are in such a big city. We go to schools all over. We're not all going to the same school. We're not all going to the same workplace. Everyone's heading in a direction, in and out at different times of day, and completely different social circles. So we have lost that there. And by the splitting of these media entertainment choices, I wonder whether that doubles down on that, and we need to try and find ways to bring it back again. And there are viewing experiences that bring it back again, like you have Taylor Swift come through, like you have Coldplay come through. Everyone goes and views those things. You can still have the same with TV and movies, when things like Last of Us come along, or other shows that bring people together. But it also means you can find common experiences that you didn't think you shared. Like Jetlag is a phenomenal show on YouTube, hosted by some phenomenal YouTubers. Imagine Amazing Race, but actually good. And I remember I had a microphone that I had bought that day, and I had brought it to a meetup I was doing with my photographer friends. And they're like, oh, is that microphone the one from Jetlag? I'm like, yeah. And then we realized, oh, we all like Jetlag together, and now that's something that we can talk about. So it's coming to realize that we actually kind of sometimes do have these commonalities that we didn't even realize, even though, we live in completely different parts of the city and only catch up so often. So once again, while it is fragmented and we don't realize we both like the same thing, I think there can also be a lot of crossover there of those niche bits of entertainment. And it's the same reason that I think if a concert comes out and says, hey, your favorite artist is performing, Spotify, Apple Music, all of these streamers should tell me, here's your friends who also listen to that artist. Because if I don't know who of my friends also listens to that artist, I have to aimlessly ask around and hope that, for one, they even know who that person is, and two, whether they want to go. So many times I ask around, same thing, I don't know who that is. And I end up having to convince someone who doesn't really know who it is, but they kind of trust that I have a good taste in music anyway. Or it'd be so much easier if they're like, here's your community who also vibes the same type of stuff as you do, and hence you guys should go together. Because while things are getting more and more digital, there still is always a pull to the physical, because there is always a pull to the rarer, to the harder to achieve. It's the same reason people still use film cameras today, even though they're way more expensive, even though the quality is way worse, because there's something admirable about actually having to take the work, the effort to go and achieve that. And there's also a difference between seeing something physical. When I watched Mythbusters for like 10 years straight as a kid, and then I went to their live show and saw them in Sydney, it was like, whoa. So the first time I was like, these are real people standing right here in front of me. And that's happened throughout shows since. We're like, wow, that's the real person I've seen on TikTok for like 7 years, with their concerts or whatever it may be. And if you see a pair of clothes online, you're kind of having to guess the size and hope it arrives right. But if you can actually go in, feel the material, realize what feels horrible, what feels great, what looks good on you, what doesn't. Books. You can't beat a bookstore just being able to browse and look around. The digital experience will never quite match that. So there is still always a benefit in those physical arenas, and that we're not completely going to a digital sector. That yes, a lot of things have been made digital, but it's the stuff people never really wanted to be physical in the first place. And gives those who want it a lot of flexibility, like when 2 years ago I did a whole tour around Europe while doing online university, because it was COVID. I didn't have to be in Australia. I could be anywhere, so why not be in the Lakes District at 2 a.m. while I do a uni class and have to avoid horses as I walk to the one spot of the area with Wi-Fi? To bring it full circle again, I think that is why we are always drawn to those common experiences, that we like watching shows with a cast of characters, that we like watching people watching other things so we can react with them like we would sitting with a friend side by side, watching some TV that we can look over, see that they're enjoying themselves. We can look over, see that they are emotionally impacted in the same way, that we can have these common experiences with our fellow brethren. And any way that these opportunities can be made more readily available through more concerts, through more live shows, through more outside activities, which is a bit hard as London gets into winter and it gets cold and rainy. But whenever the opportunity is available, that should be taken at all costs, because it is so natural to be pulled to those sorts of activities and is so essential to keep us healthy and sane throughout, as Jon Snow would say, the winter that is coming. But make sure if you want to hear more thought tangents like this, you hit subscribe and comment, because I absolutely want to hear your thoughts on all of these matters, because there'll be plenty more coming out